Welcome to the High Performance Disciple podcast. My name is Gareth Morgan, and my goal is to help you close the gap between your God-given potential and your daily performance. What I do is I explore the explosive combination of timeless spiritual principles and high performance practices that will enable you to take control, to be courageous, and to release the greatness that is in you. This conversation is designed to help high achieving, high impact leaders, entrepreneurs, athletes, and pioneers turn fear into faith, confusion into clarity, frustration into focus, and stress into strategy. If you enjoy what you hear, I would love for you to like it, to subscribe, to comment, and share it with others that you believe in. Here's today's conversation. Welcome back to another episode of the High Performance Disciple podcast, where we focus on helping you become the high-performing, healthy leader that others want to imitate. And so I am looking forward to carrying on our conversation from the last episode, where we were asking the question, who is really at the wheel of my life? Like, who is really in control? And you can go back and listen to the previous episode if you haven't listened to it. But essentially, we were looking at the fact that we have these two parts of us, the conscious you and the subconscious you. And the subconscious you is the daddy. It's the one that's in control. And the conscious part of you is like the little boy. And I use the analogy of me as a little boy being on my dad's lap in the car, being told, hey, you can take this car for a drive, on private land, I might add. And of course, me feeling like I was in control of the wheel. But really, my dad had hold of the wheel underneath, and also he had his feet on the pedals and his hand on the gear stick. I thought I was in control, but really my dad was in control. And the conscious part of you and me believes that we're in control, and we have a part to play, but the subconscious daddy is ultimately in control, is the dominant force in the relationship. And so I want to look in this episode at the tactics that we can deploy in our daily lives to start to determine what is in our subconscious, to start to understand how we can feed the spirit part of you, which is the area where our beliefs reside, where our values are, and our identity ultimately flows from that core piece of you. And that identity is formed through the formative years of our lives, and that can go one of two ways. It can be formed in a way that is empowering, or it can be formed in a way that becomes disempowering. But then as part of the subconscious, not only have you got the spirit, which is the beliefs, you've got the soul, which is the emotional part of us. The seat of our emotions is the soul. And the soul and the spirit essentially make up the subconscious daddy. You know the power of emotions in making decisions. You know sometimes you feel like you make a conscious decision in your mind to do something, but the feeling of not wanting to do it is so powerful. And then beneath the emotion is the belief of who you are. And John Maxwell says this, a person will never outperform their self-image. A person will never outperform their self-image. So that subconscious part of us is where that self-image resides. So if we really want to lift the lid on performance, on productivity, on where we want to get to, and I'm guessing by the very nature of your listening or watching this, then you've got a vision that is beyond your current reality. In other words, there's a future that you prefer. That's what vision is. It's a preferred future. There's a tomorrow that you've curated in your imagination let's use a religious term, there is a future you believe God has promised you or given to you, but right now, where you see yourself, it seems almost incompatible. And let me say right now, that's the way it should be. If your vision for 5 years from now, 10 years from now, does not intimidate your current reality, then it's not big enough. Because the purpose of vision is to grow you. Vision is not just it's not about the destination, it's about the process of growing and becoming. So if your vision is easily attainable through the way that you currently are, then there's no growth in that. That's a linear journey. That is not a journey of growth. Which journey of growth, it starts here, it ends here, but the journey is full of peaks and troughs. And so we've got to start to understand that this area of that spirit and soul, the subconscious part of us, really needs to be understood more. And the good news is that if we understand it more, we're able to harness its power. It's not an evil force that kind of God has allowed in order to kind of keep us small. Completely the opposite, in fact. In fact, the worldview I have in terms as a Christian is our spirit and soul was our spirit particularly, it was our connection to God. And therefore, think about it this way, right? If your spirit is your connection point to, it's a bit like the internet right now. I've got a laptop in front of me. Some of you are listening to this, not watching. So I've got a laptop in front of me, a physical laptop, but it has total access while the internet is working. It has total access to a whole load of knowledge that I can't see, but I know I can access. There's a wealth of knowledge and information that I can bring to my screen. It's like that with God. It's that God is this all-knowing, all-present, all-powerful being, again, from my worldview, and therefore my spirit is like the screen. It's like the laptop where I can draw upon that source and bring that onto the screen that then can start to, from the screen, influence how I feel, think, and act. So this is how powerful this is. And you can start to see now why the spiritual and high performance are 100% connected. So I said that I wanted to look at 3 things that we could do to start to maybe be in control of what's going into our subconscious. Okay, so 3 things. And again, I use the proverb from Proverbs 23, verse 6 to 8, which I'm going to give you the full proverb now, but essentially says this: as a man thinks in his heart, so he is. Now, when the Bible talks about the heart, it's not talking about, the ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom heart, the one that pumps the blood around the body. It's talking about the deeper part of the mind, the subconscious. It's talking about the deeper part of the mind, the subconscious. And so that verse is saying that is the epicenter of what a man becomes. So if you want to become somebody that is going to match up with that future vision that you have, then it all starts in the heart. So 3 areas that we can start to focus on to really start to deposit into our subconscious what is going to be helpful rather than a hindrance to our future. First of all, before you go to sleep. This is highly practical now. What we do before we sleep is incredibly important, but usually completely ignored. these days, more often than not, people will be on devices. And let me say right now, I am one of those people. I've had to consciously, coming back to the last episode, consciously become aware of what I previously was unconscious of. And now I'm probably in the stage of conscious competence. I don't think I'm fully there into unconscious competence yet. So I have to deliberately determine what the last half an hour before I go to sleep looks like. But I've understood how important it is because your subconscious never switches off. It's like the computer, the server system that isn't switched off in a business, in a data center. They are constantly left on 24/7, 365 days a year. The people have left the building. The workers have gone home at night or at Christmas, but the server is still going. And the subconscious is constantly going, even when the conscious part of me is switched off. So in that last half an hour particularly, and it could be even longer than this, but let me just talk about half an hour, because I think half an hour is something that we could get started with. But what I do in that last half an hour really impacts on what my subconscious is going to feed on and process. Have you ever... And this happened to me certainly around the holiday times, Christmas times, when I was a young boy. I love computer games. Don't play them that much now, but love computer games. And so I would, at Christmas time particularly, when there was not much else to do, binge on playing computer games. And so I'd play right up until I fell asleep. But have you ever had this where you've then gone to sleep and consciously you've switched off, but your subconscious is still playing the game? You wake, you're restless throughout the night because you're almost still in game mode, and therefore there's this internal struggle between the conscious part of you that's switched off, but the subconscious that's almost kind of got into overdrive. And it can become the worst night's sleep. It might be that you're watching a certain movie before you go to sleep. And again, you then go to sleep having fed your subconscious that, and that is then left to marinate in your subconscious. And again, based upon what that film's about, it can play havoc with your sleep pattern. There's a psalm, and again, this podcast is about the combination of spiritual principles and high performance practices, but there's a psalm that And this is my go-to psalm whenever I struggle to sleep. Because for me, the Bible plays an important role in regulating my soul. The emotional part of us can be so erratic. And I find that if I don't feed it and regulate it, then it can literally make me sick. So, because it's a bit like a roller coaster. If you've sat on a roller coaster 24/7, yeah, it's not going to do you any good. And our emotions can be like that. We need something to regulate it. And so Psalm 16, this is my go-to psalm, but I'm only going to read for you 3 verses of it. It says this: Lord, you alone are my portion and my cup. You make my lot secure. The boundary lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. Surely I have a delightful inheritance. I praise the Lord who counsels me. Even at night, my heart instructs me. I keep my eyes always on the Lord. With him at my right hand, I will not be shaken. And there's so many things I'd love to say about that psalm, but I'm going to be really disciplined and just focus on the one verse out of that. I encourage you, go and have a read of it. You can look at it on BibleGateway.com or the Bible app, which is free to download, whether you're a person of the Christian faith or not. It's a great psalm. But the line that says, I will praise the Lord who counsels me. Even at night, my heart instructs me. Even at night, my heart, remember I said about the Bible, the heart is not the bum, it's the deeper part of the mind. Even at night, my heart instructs me. Essentially, what the psalmist, who is very often David from the Old Testament, but also there are other people that wrote psalms, which are songs. The song is saying that there is an active role that the subconscious plays in my growth and development. I can I can position my subconscious in such a way that it feeds me what I want to be fed. The reality is, if I don't decide what my subconscious is going to feed me, it's going to feed me anyway. But is it going to feed me what is nutritious and helpful to my journey of becoming who the future needs me to become? Or is it actually going to work against me, making me sick en route trying to attempt a vision? And the problem is, if I'm en route attempting to achieve a vision, it's a bit like if you were to say, well, do you know what, I'm going to go run a marathon next week, and every day from now until next week you ate cheeseburgers and milkshakes. Like, you can have the vision, but the vision in one sense is actually going to make you sick because you've fed yourself all the wrong things. You're setting yourself up to fail. And what this is telling us is it's saying that I need to decide what my subconscious is going to focus on. So the last thing before I go to sleep at night, I need to feed my subconscious deliberately something that I want to be chewing on throughout the night. Something that is going to produce peace, joy, hope, love, okay? Now, again, this for me is where, for me, this is where God is the source of this. If you're not a Christian, then it might be that you feed on something that is inspirational, or a story that is empowering, or some thoughts or ideas that are life-giving. For me, there is nothing more than that, it's all rooted, if it's truth, for me, in God. So I will try and make sure that I feed off something before I go to sleep, because what I focus on, I feed, and what I feed grows. So before I go to sleep is a really important part. And of course, that then impacts on my second tactic, which is what you do first thing in the morning. So if the last thing at night is an important role, of course, if I get it wrong the night before, have you ever been tossing and turning all night and then trying to do something first thing in the morning becomes a nightmare because A, you don't feel like waking up because you're so tired, and B, your mood is all over the place. You're disorientated. So these three are actually connected. But the second thing is first thing in the morning. First thing in the morning. You see, I can't spend an awful lot of time on this, but we are integrated beings with 4 layers: spirit, soul, mind, and body. And the way we optimize how we live is to literally approach the day in that order. That isn't an order of how we're put together that is inconsequential or a coincidence. If we jump into our day, let's work from the outside in, from the physical. Okay, this is what I've got to do today. So I immediately jump into the doing. I have violated the fact that I am not a human doing, I'm a human being. So being comes first. Being comes first. And if I jump straight into the doing without going through the process, I am likely to incur challenge and come against obstacles that I could have prevented or I could have been better prepared for. And that starts with the spirit. So principles that are going to help feed the beliefs that I want to have first thing in the morning. The soul, how do I want to feel today? I might use music. For me, it could be worship music, so music that connects me to God. And then the mind, so something then that stimulates my mind and that my mind can feed on to get me in the right attitude and mentality. And then action. Okay, what am I going to act upon that is going to set me up for the day based upon what I've been thinking about, feeling, and feeding my spirit, my beliefs. Okay, so again, we have to understand that there is a process there and a pattern that if we follow that pattern, it sets us up to be successful. My version of success is to bring the best version of who I am to what matters most each day. Each day I can be successful. Each day you can be successful. But we have to set ourselves up to win. And just jumping into doing before feeding our being is like violating the mother's law, which says don't go out on an empty stomach. The breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And I believe that is physically true and spiritually true. If you don't feed yourself spiritually, you go straight out into the physical world to do physical things. And it's like trying to run a marathon without taking on board water or food. So first thing in the morning, as well as last thing at night. And then what's the third thing then, Gareth? Well, it's the extra time. I call it extra time. So it's the time between tasks. So it could be that time that we see as wasted time in the car, driving from a venue to home or between appointments. It could be waiting in a queue. It could be walking our children to school. There could be many different points that are kind of transitionary moments or periods in our day. And those are great opportunities for us to refocus on what is it that I am believing right now. I've said it on a previous episode, but deciding who am I being right now. And I know that these aren't the things that naturally we think about, but that's why if we want to invest in the daddy of our subconscious, we've got to adopt some different ways of doing things in order to have different outcomes. And so, for me, what does that look like? Well, that can look like what I'm listening to. I might listen to a podcast that helps to feed me in a way that is going to, again, reinforce beliefs or values or principles. It could be, for me, prayer plays a part in that. So, that might be prayer or meditation for you. But again, a way in which I can reconnect and recenter myself. The problem is when we're hurrying all the time between tasks, we can end up becoming busy but not effective. And busyness is not equal to being productive. We have to realize that some of the miracles happen in the margins. In fact, most of the miracles in my life have happened in the margins, the unplanned areas of my life, which for me, that's where God operated, God orchestrated. My most significant decisions were not planned. Was I ready for them? Absolutely. I was responsible for being ready, but I wasn't able to manipulate or orchestrate what happened. And so what I see is really important to get momentum. And I've talked about momentum in a previous episode. But gear one, if you want to read more about this in my book, The Winning Conversation, section 10, talks about how to build winning momentum. And gear one of building momentum is immersion. Immersing yourself in the beliefs, values, and principles. And immersion is not an infrequent visit or visiting from time to time. It's why I say, and as a Christian, I don't believe going to church makes you a Christian. I don't believe, visiting a certain business makes you proficient in that business. You have to immerse yourself in something. You have to master something. You have to completely submerge yourself in that thing or that information or those truths. And so that's what this is about. The extra time that we can access that truth, that information, those principles before we go to sleep and when we first wake up in the morning. Those are three key points of creating that immersive growth environment. So let me ask you right now, what can you start to do to create your own growth environment? Your subconscious is at the wheel of your life. And if you don't like where it's taking you, you can do something about it. So it's time, as I always say, to take control, be courageous, and release the greatness that's in you. I hope today's episode was helpful to you. You can get more by subscribing to my channel, and I have more content and tools that can help you on your journey if you'd like to head over to garethmorgan.tv. Remember, today and every day you are a champion, and there is more in you than you think.